Most people don't move because of interest rates. They move because of the 4Ds. Diamonds, delivery, divorce, and of course, death. The question is, what does today's market mean for these discussions? I'm Raul Jimenez with the Schrader Group. I'm here with Cleo Garza from Summit Funding. So, Cleo, let's start with the glitz and glamour. Let's start with diamonds, all right? Okay. So, a couple decides now's the time. They're ready to, move households together. They're thinking all this big picture stuff. When does it become that point in time to reach out to a qualified lender?
I think as soon as possible, right? Because when people get married, they're talking about either, buying a home. It's always a topic of conversation. People get married unless they're going to lease or rent. But if they're going to buy a home, what they should be talking about is really time frame, what's their budget, and really visit with the lender to see what their buying power is. Typically they're first-time home buyers. They don't know a whole lot. And so the key is to educate them up front and help them get the process started. And that's what I would do if somebody's getting married.
So now we got the diamonds. We've been in the house a few years, and then here comes the stork, right? Now it's time to get a little bit bigger of a household. Try to expect that, the incoming child or whatnot. What's next on that side?
Well, typically, people after they have, a child, the current home probably works, but if they get 2 or 3 kids down the road, which happens often, right? Mm-hmm. Then they're looking at, either, selling their current home and buying another home. I think it all goes back to just educating them and saying, hey, this is what you can do if you sell your home, or if you keep it rented out, you can get this type of, return on investment, rent it out. But typically people sell their homes between the 3rd year and the 7th year. And at that point in time, they've got 1 or 2 kids, maybe more. So whenever they're having, more than 2 kids, that's when I see them looking to move out of the first home and buy their second move up, and they give me a call.
They give you a call. So that's when the world's going perfect, right? Now we got our 3rd D. The 3rd D is divorce. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to divorce, we have options. I think, depending on how it's going, there's some strategy goes into play. Are we going to buy? Are we going to sell? Are we going to buy somebody out? Or are we going to just, just see what our options are? What would you say would be the next advice strategy, especially from a trusted lender, because you're able to kind of look at it big picture, aren't you?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I've helped people, buy homes, go through all those phases, right? The diamonds, the diapers, and now it's divorce. So when a client comes to me, what I suggest out of the gate, and this is really important, is they really should get a credit report for both parties to see what they owe, who owes what, so they can share that with their attorney if it comes to that, right? And then for sure, so that way they know what debts belong to who. That's a really big deal. But another thing that someone can do is they can do one of the parties who's staying in the house, they can do what's called an Owelty Lien. An Owelty Lien is basically where it's basically a rate and term refinance where the one of the spouses who's going to stay in the home retains the home but gives their equity portion of whatever is left with the loan balance and its value, and they can buy out that other person. Typically that's done after the divorce when you sign a divorce decree. They can take that money, move on, and buy a home. I'm doing one right now, actually. Mm-hmm. So there's another strategy there. Or in some cases, sadly, you got to sell the home.
Yeah. Which then leads us to a full life. And unfortunately, something happens. Now we're to the 4th D, unfortunate death. There's some things that come into play. You said sell a home if need be, hand it down to the family members, or figure out some other strategy. What is the next step on that side?
Well, hopefully, and with some clients, some of them you get to know them, the deal. You get to know them as friends. Mm-hmm. They tend to trust you, and they ask you questions. One of the things I tell almost all of my buyers when they buy a home, hey, do you have a will? And if they don't, I suggest they get it. And if they do have a will, someone unfortunately dies unexpectedly, which does happen, then I would tell the surviving spouse to probate that will as soon as possible. Very important. And if they still have a mortgage, reach out to the servicer as soon as you can and establish that communication, especially if you weren't the one that was typically paying the bills. Mm-hmm. What they're going to want to see is like a death certificate and things like that. And after that, then hopefully they'll visit with, someone they trust to go to next steps, which is maybe sell the home. I don't know. It's, sometimes they tend to keep it, but my experience is typically they tend to want to sell that property and just kind of move on,
Which leads me to the next one. I mean, we just talked about the 4Ds, and I think they're just major life changes that we look at. When we're thinking about today's interest rates and buying in 2026, with this being in play, what do you think someone should be thinking about as they're going or navigating these major life changes?
Rates today we're at 36 to 37 month lows. So if you're going to make a move, right now is the right time. Rates are great. For those people who are on the sidelines who think they should wait to either buy or sell, well, if they wait to buy, I think that same home is going to cost them more money as we get through the buying and selling season, and by August they could be paying 5% more for the same home they could have bought today.
Yeah. Well, life happens, right? And we got the 4Ds that we've been talking about. But if for some reason one of you guys are out there thinking wedding bells, or we're thinking this is just the end of it, or whatever it might be, how do people get a hold of Cleo to get that advice that they're probably want to ask, but they just don't want to raise their hand in front of their friends or colleagues?
Sure. They can reach out to me via email or my cell phone, which I hope will provide here at some point, and reach out anytime. It won't cost you a penny to ask me questions, and I'm happy to help.
At the end of the day, life changes don't wait on the market. The key is understanding you have options and having a plan. If you're navigating a move in San Antonio, we'd love to help you build the right strategy. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and as always, have a blessed day.